Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Views, the podcast that takes a topic each week and, as the name suggests, cast views. This week it's Mind Wipe time, and I'm really looking forward to this one because the guest this week is a good friend of mine. He's a familiar voice and a good friend of the show. He was my first ever guest on this show. He's an author. He's a founder of the PodPack Collective. He's a host of Chatsunami. It's Satsu from Chatsunami. Hiya, Satsu. How are you doing?
Hi there. Thank you for the glowing introduction there. You don't do CVs by chance, do you? Like CV references, no. No.
Do you know what? It's funny. I'm notoriously bad for introductions, but this one, I was thinking, I said to myself, don't think too much about it. And I thought, like, do you know, all you've got to do is speak really highly of him, and it's just really easy to do. But I want to pick on one thing I said there.
Mhm.
So you were my first ever guest, or you were the first ever guest on Casting Views. And depending on when this episode goes out, it'll be fairly close to 3 years to the day. So our first collaboration was the episode went out the 20th of March, 22. There you go.
Wow, that
3
is
years.
that is absolutely insane to think about. I was actually discussing this today with my family that I feel as if time is like a flat circle now after COVID, because you've got that time where in your life you've got before COVID and after COVID. And before COVID, life went quite slowly. You thought, oh, when are the years going to speed up? And see, once 2020 hit, honestly, I have blinked. And now we're in 2025. We're not even in January. We're,
Yeah.
we're barreling through 2025.
Well,
Oh,
this thing
gosh.
at time of recording is it's the 10th of Feb. So I actually said this to my wife at the weekend. I said, people joke about January being a slow month or a long month, and it is. But as you said, we're not in January. We're not even at the start of Feb. We're coming up to halfway through February already.
Oh my God, yeah. Because see the amount of stuff I've had planned for the podcast, and I said to my co-hosts and friends, "Oh, it's fine. It's a long way away." And then you actually look at it and think, "Oh my God, we're actually releasing these episodes now. Where has the time gone?" Oh, I'm getting old. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, don't talk to me about that. I'm in a weird situation where I took a month off in December. I've come back and but kind of the planning and recording is all over the place. So I think I was saying to you beforehand, the reason I'm not sure when this will go out is because I've already recorded certain episodes that I'm fitting in at the end of the next couple of months, but I've not recorded ones that need to be released earlier. So I've managed to get myself in that position again where I was talking to Joey of the Game Club Pod last night, and he goes, "Oh, you're so in advance," or it may have even been Alex, sorry, a couple of nights ago. I
Mhm.
said, "No, I'm not. It's not that. It's just the way I want to release episodes. I've just done the later ones first."
Yeah. It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, and one thing I missed out of the intro is you're also someone who receives 101 Twitter DMs from me a day, mainly of game recommendations, which just lengthens or increases your backlog, isn't it? So again, I apologise for that.
Oh, please don't. It keeps me off the streets. It gives me something to do. Because, funny enough, for a month that you're coming on for my podcast, I remember sending you, it was like a picture of me in the middle of Glasgow playing on the Steam Deck, playing a particular horror game where the residents are indeed evil. And I was like, you know what, Dan, this game's not scary. It's fine. Let's play it. About 5 minutes later, I DM'd you and said, yeah, screw this. It's too scary. I'm not doing it in the middle of the street.
I love that.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
whereas most people will turn the lights off and put headphones on. No, you're playing it out in the middle of the street. It looked like, I know it wasn't, but it was like midnight. You up the ante and then some.
Yeah, it was like Silent Hill weather. I thought, yeah, what's the worst that could happen? I always worry about that if I'm sitting in my car or something playing the Steam Deck, because I know for a fact I would be one of those people that would attract a person walking by who would be like, is that a Steam Deck? And then knock at my window and be like, oh, I've got a Steam Deck. And it's like, I do. Great. Not happened yet. touch wood, not happened yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I've got to have a word with you because I get you on here. We talk about these nice, fun subjects. You know, we've done video game collectors editions, things like that.
Yeah.
Jumping the shark. You get me on, and you make me play horror games, which aren't my thing. But you know, it's fine. It is what it is. I see how this friendship goes. Right.
I mean, where does Bioshock fall in that category? Because I also asked you to play that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, technically, that's a horror action, maybe. Philosophical piece of media, let's just say.
Dead Space. You had me on for the Dead Space remake, didn't you?
To be fair, that was you that got me to play it.
Okay, all
Thank
right. I wasn't expecting you to say that or remember that, but okay.
Oh, well, Mindwipe hasn't started yet, Dan. Come on.
Yeah, and yeah, then it's Bioshock. It's going to be Bioshock, and yeah, Resident Evil.
Mhm.
But anyway, enough about that. I can't believe there isn't anyone listening that hasn't heard of your podcast. But do you just want to give your elevator pitch for everyone listening, and then we can get onto the real crux of the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello there, everybody listening. I'm sorry the elevator broke. Don't look at the bottle of water in my hands and the sparks coming out the control panel. That wasn't me. Anyway, if you'd like to listen to Chatsunami, yeah, we are a Scottish variety podcast, as the accent denotes, and we discuss a whole host of various topics from gaming, films, anime, general interests. We also do a lot of interviews with other content creators, from musicians and podcasters, and yourself included, which have been some fantastic episodes. But we really talk to a whole bunch of people. And you might think, well, that's because you're very indecisive, Satsu. And I agree, I am very indecisive, but I just love talking about things. And honestly, I cannot believe it's been about nearly 5 years. It'll be 5 years this November that we started the podcast officially. Because, oh my God, I was looking at my stats today, and as of recording this episode, we just hit 300 plays for our very first episode. Which, on the one hand, it's amazing to look back and think, wow, I can't believe 300 people have listened to it, and so on and so forth. The other thing that fills me with terror, though, is that there's 300 people out there who decided to start at episode 1. um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, it was, as of this episode, it was over 4 years ago. We have changed significantly from those days. It used to be done live on Twitch, and now it is recorded on lovely old Zencaster. Love you guys. And yeah, really, it is just a conversation between friends, content creators, and a variety of other, as I said, topics that we just love chatting about. And I mean, I've talked your ear off plenty of times about ideas and getting you on to talk about things like as as dusk falls, talking about the PodPack Collective, and yeah, talking about a whole host of other things.
And congratulations on that 300 listen landmark. I mean,
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's astonishing, isn't it? This journey we start off not knowing how it's going to be, and then for you, 5 years later, for me, sort of coming up to 4 years. It's just
Oh,
brilliant, isn't it?
mhm. It's absolutely incredible, because I know this is such a cliche thing to start off the episode, to be like, I can't believe how far we've both come. But in all seriousness, whenever you see the indie podcasting community, you get to know the same faces that keep popping up. And especially with yourself, well, obviously because we're friends, I keep seeing you pop up on my feed, but as well within the community, it is so amazing seeing you collaborate with other content creators like the Game Club Pod. I was actually listening to your conversation with Joey in his episode of Mind Wipe before I came on. Absolutely fantastic episode as well. Honestly, there are just so many. There's too many for me to list because I want to keep it brief. But you do absolutely fantastic work. And honestly, I'm just lucky that 3 years ago that I bumped into your podcast, because honestly, it's been a fantastic experience. Obviously, getting to know you, getting to know your podcast, and especially working together with you. So I'm just so happy that yeah, that I'm back here and you've given me another platform after talking about licking a ice shaped Daniel Craig. I feel as if I would have got chucked off for that one, but
I I think if you're a new listener, for context, I'll put the link to the episode in the show notes.
no, don't give context. Real
Um,
fans will know.
But thank you for those kind words. And yeah, definitely, if you're not already, please do go follow, go subscribe to Chatsunami now. Brilliant podcast, and yeah, Satsu's obviously a brilliant guy. So yeah, go do that now. Well, not now. Go do it after you've listened to this episode. Right, Satsu, I've been looking forward to this. I hope you have too. You know the setup. I am going to wipe your mind of a number of subjects. And what I want from you are 1 to 3 things from each subject that you want to relive for the first time. Now, they don't have to be your most favorite things from each of these. They just have to be something that, for whatever reason, you want to experience that joy for the first time again. I think with you, some of these could go anywhere, and that's what I'm worried about. Is my knowledge? I'm quickly getting Google on hand just in case. Yeah, for someone like yourself who you do a variety, entertainment variety podcasts, I think it's going to be fascinating to see your picks here. No pressure.
Oh, none at all. Yeah.
So I've got the subjects in an order here, and do you know what? Normally I try randomize them, but I'm just going to go through this order. So we are going to start with TV shows. So what are the shows you want to relive for the first time?
Oh, well, I was racking my brain, and you're going to hear this a lot for each subject, but genuinely, there are so many that I could put into the list. As you said, no particular favourites at all, but the first one that I chose was a very Scottish centric show. And I have to say, I think it is not only Scottish centric, but it's also very applicable, I suppose, to the time that I was growing up and the time that it came out and everything. And that, of course, is Still Game. Now, before I go on to describe what the heck Still Game is, do you know what this show is? Have you ever heard of this before?
I know the show, I've heard of it, but it is one of those ones I've never actually got round to seeing.
So I would recommend it wholeheartedly, first of all, but it might be a bit difficult for. Well, one of my friends said this. I always remember saying that I was going to talk about it in the podcast, and one of my friends was like, no one will understand what you're talking about because it is very Glaswegian, it is very Scottish. It's basically about it's a comedy, like a kind of comedy sitcom thing, and it's about two characters called Jack and Victor. They are old age pensioners that live in this very horrible scheme slash council place up in these high rise flats. And they basically go through daily life as pensioners and talking about the good old days and things like that. Admittedly, some of the jokes are a bit dated, some of them might not hold up as well, but when it really lands, it really lands. I think that beyond the jokes and things and the kind of crass humour, there is a lot of heart to it. Because not only do they talk about the cons of obviously getting older and not being able to do what they used to be able to do, they also mull over the idea of, oh, how have we spent our life? What are we going to do going forward? There's a lot of different hijinks that the characters get into, some obviously more believable than others. But it's something that I kind of grew up with a little bit watching it. Admittedly, some of it was a bit inappropriate, so I wasn't allowed to watch it. Other bits, when I watched it at a later date, it was hilarious. Some bits, again, as I said, a bit crass, maybe not as funny, but it's kind of a slice of Glaswegian humour, and it's amazing how it's not gone further, I think. But honestly, I just love it, and every time I have the chance to share it, I apologise for that. That is my dog kicking down the door. Sorry.
This what? Disagrees with your
Oh,
choice.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think that everyone has to at least see bits of it at least once. It is just such a important show. And I have to say, when I was in Acme Comic Con, I think a couple of years ago, technically, I don't think Acme Comic Con exists anymore. It used to, but they had the actors from Still Game, and I'm not gonna lie, I bottled it to actually go meet them.
Oh, really?
I saw them do their speech and everything. But yeah, I bottled it. Not gonna lie, I was too nervous to go up and be like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan," for this show that's like years old. And again, you would think a show about old age pensioners from Glasgow it would be like a really niche thing, but honestly, I think there's something for everyone in that show. And yeah, no, I just think it's a fantastic show. Sorry for waxing lyrical about that
I
there.
mean, I'm looking at it now. It's an intriguing one in that it's had 9 seasons, which is great, but it's spread out over many years. So it debuted in 2002, but its final season ultimately was in 2019. So felt like it had a bit of a flurry, then it had a bit of a break, then it came back, then a mini break, and then it came back for 2 more seasons.
Yeah, there's a bit of drama there.
That was the
They went from season 1 to 6, and then there was like a hiatus because two of the main actors went away and did I think it was a BBC Scotland comedy show. It was terrible.
right.
It was like about park keepers in Scotland or something like that. You know, the people who go around and make sure the parks proceed. It wasn't very good. And the other one went away and did his own thing. And then, as you said, years later, they eventually came back, and it's not as well regarded, I have to say, anymore. But well, not in terms of the first seasons. Like the first seasons are always the classic ones, but
Mm,
the later ones, especially, are very mixed because of certain characters they introduced, and the jokes just didn't land as they used to. So it's very much a like, not a time capsule, but like that kind of moment in
yeah,
time where,
absolutely.
yeah, it's an interesting one, I will say. Like the first 6 seasons are definitely really funny, but the last 3 seasons are not the worst TV you're going to watch. But comparing it to what it used to be, it's kind of a hard one because how do you keep up with the times and how do you keep up with a show that already has 6 seasons and is already stretching the premise? So it's an interesting one. And yes, it's a it's one that I really want to do an episode on.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we're going to digress already on your first choice of your first subject. But I've discussed this a couple of times on my Pilot View series with Justin. That comedies seem to fall into that trap of feeling, and I'm not saying it with this. I'm just saying generally, they feel like they have to become serious or introduce serious elements, and I don't want that from my comedies. And it was just something that you said made me think about this because ultimately, fans were always a critic, right? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, if the show doesn't change, people complain that the show doesn't change. But then if they
mm.
change things too much, it moves away from that central core of what it was and becomes something else, doesn't it?
Oh no, absolutely. Because there's a particular episode, and this is going to sound so weird out of context. I apologise, but there is an episode that I watched the other day, weirdly enough, where they discuss the idea of grief, and in particular there's this pensioner who ends up unfortunately like off screen, but he loses his wife, so he is very aimless. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He can't even make himself a cup of tea. He's just completely lost without his wife. Now that is a very serious issue, and again they handle it in a relatively mature way. They have the speech of, oh, when we went through that, we depended on one another. You have to open up and talk to people, reach out. That's a really interesting thing, and it's such an important message. But then it's followed up by him asking them for help to take out a pot from under his bed, which unfortunately is, of course, filled with MP. Now, what ends up happening is one of them jokingly pretends he takes an empty pot and pretends to pour it over the guy who's like refusing to touch this pot of pee. And they're laughing, they're like, oh, it's so funny, ha ha ha. But then 2 seconds later, when he's got the real pot, he trips up and he splashes the guy completely with this pee. And that's the thing, is like, immature and weird as that sounds, I feel as if that's the only kind of show that, I mean, there's obviously other shows, but it's one of the few shows that can pull that off, that can have those kind of comedy and light-hearted moments, but then also throw in the serious elements of, pensioners living their lives, having to deal with the idea of losing people and things like that. It's such a fascinating show. I'm not going to lie, and it is such a cultural staple of Scotland. Honestly, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone in Scotland who doesn't know what Still Game is. I mean, maybe unless they're the younger generation, but my generation above,
Listen to
definitely.
you. Listen
Yeah,
to you.
I know, I'm a young'un. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think before we say anything else there, I think
But
we
I mean,
should.
we're both in our 20s, aren't we? I mean,
Hence why I don't have any video. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Great first choice. So, what's your second entry in TV?
So the other two kind of overlap with one another for the reasons that I picked them. And one of them is surprisingly Twin Peaks, which I have to say, have you seen Twin Peaks?
Do you know what? I think I saw it when it originally aired, but I haven't. It's one of those shows again I haven't seen since.
I think there's a particular scene in The Simpsons where they make fun of it by Homer watching a man, one of the characters, dancing under like a swaying traffic light with a horse. And Homer laughs and he goes, "Brilliant. I have absolutely no idea what's going on." And that's kind of, initially when I first watched it, like I obviously picked up the basic plot and things, and it's so weird. It's so different, and it was one of my friends, very good friends from school, who introduced me to it. And I remember watching the first couple of episodes, being like, "Oh, I don't know, it's good." And then as soon as I saw Kyle MacLachlan's character, who, for those of you who don't know, he plays the FBI agent in it, but he's also been in things recently, like he was in the old Dune movie, but he was also the father in the new Fallout series. Um,
He's been in 101 things, hasn't he? I
Oh
think.
yeah, he was in the Flintstones live
Yeah.
action. He's been in he's been in loads of David Lynch films as well, like Blue Velvet, and things like that. Twin Peaks is just one of those things that it's so weird and over the top, but it's got such a particular vision. And I have to say, for something like that, for him to commit to that vision, and granted there's obviously like the controversies with season 2 that studios interfered, blah blah blah, so he didn't maybe get as much lynchisms as he wanted, but honestly, it's just so nostalgic in a way to me. And again, when I say nostalgic, I don't mean as in I was there when it first came out. I mean, this was years later in university when my friend showed me it, and it's such a good piece of media. And the same friend then also introduced me to TNG, or the next generation of Star Trek, which I have to say initially, and I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but when I was younger, I loved, and I still do to an extent, I loved Star Wars. Absolutely thought it was amazing. You had the battles in space, you had the laser sword fights. I know it's a lightsaber, don't come at me. But, you had all of these. It was so cool, it was so flashy. And then when you compare it to the next generation, it's very slow in comparison. And it's like, "Oh, number one, please pull into the spaceport. We're going to talk about trade negotiations," and things like that. You're like, "Oh my!" As a kid, you go, "Oh my god, this is so boring." But when you get older, and it's the same with Twin Peaks and especially Still Game as well, you get a newfound sense of appreciation that you want a society like this. You want to be part of the Federation. You want to explore the stars and things. And it's something that unfortunately I didn't see it as a child, but as an adult, I just absolutely fell in love with it with my friend. And I mean, he watched it growing up, and even during lockdown, I binged a lot of the adjacent series like Deep Space Nine, which I will maintain I was tossing up between the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, but although I love Deep Space Nine with a passion, the Next Generation was just that one that really hooked me into Star Trek. I wouldn't say I'm a full blown Trekkie, but I know enough of it to do like episodes on it. I honestly, I love both of them.
Again, Star Trek is another one that's kind of not passed me by. That's wrong. I've dipped in and out of it. Now, my wife, she loved all the early series and like Next Generation. I want to do a watch now. I kind of want to sit down and start watching them all. But yeah, it's another show that I think once I start, I'll probably become addicted to, because I've said on here a number of times, I love the shows that have got the lore, the intertwining sort of stories. It just feels like something that's continually tried to kind of reinvent itself, right?
It's an interesting one because with the original, the TOS, the original series as it's called, it was a bit too kind of campy for me, I would say,
Mm.
but it's still got, it's got cool elements because it's very bright, it's very vibrant. The uniforms are 110% like 60s, 70s, aren't they? With the like, they're just absolute. You look at them and go, "Yeah, this was a choice back then." But you have these elements that evolve in the Next Generation, then they evolve in things like Deep Space Nine. Like Deep Space Nine is more of a serial drama, well, war drama, as it were. And the way they tackle some of the things are absolutely amazing. But one thing that I will say about the Next Generation is and my very good friend Martin McAllister, if you're listening to this episode, you will know for a fact what I'm talking about here, that the early episodes are quite difficult to get through, because I think it's the same for a lot of Star Trek series, that they always have this transitional period between, going from one series to the other, so they have to find their feet. But the only problem is they take like a couple of seasons to find their feet. And one of the jokes is that there's a character in it called Riker, played by the amazing Jonathan Frakes, and they say that when his beard starts to grow in and he starts to get a little bit bigger, and that's when the show starts getting good. So if you want to like gauge how good Star Trek is, watch Jonathan Frakes, because he's very thin in the first one. He's not got a beard. He's very clean shaven. But the more he gets a beard, the better it gets.
So just
It's like,
skip to the full beard series.
yeah,
Is it
pretty much.
okay?
Like I would say like season 4 is incredible onwards.
Right.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember much of season 1 to 3, but I know season 1 was quite controversial, because they took a lot of episodes from the original series and they tried to adapt it to those characters, but there's a lot of very uncomfortable and weird episodes. Like they go to a planet that is very how to put this, the African planet is the only way I can describe it, and
Right.
it is
Okay.
very not TNG, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you watch the later series and think this is an amazing show, but then you have to wade through those. But the great thing about TNG is you can just pick an episode, unless it's like a two-parter. You can pick any episode to dive into, and you really won't miss much. I mean, you'll miss bits and pieces from previous episodes, but it's not like Deep Space Nine where you're missing a lot of plot and a lot of lore going in.
Mm.
So it's like the perfect starter series, I would say, for the Next Generation. Or see, if you want like a really good film for the Next Generation, watch First Contact, because that is honestly one of my favourite sci-fi films of all time, and ironically enough, it's not on this list. But yeah, it's a great film.
And also, kind of, we skipped over. I mean, I want to go on to the next subject very shortly, but
Oh yeah.
the the Twin Peaks. I mean, yeah, that's a wild card pick in terms of the sort of the other two you've got. And
Mhm.
did you watch the new? Because they did a new series, didn't they? I think I'm looking about
Yeah.
2016, 2017. I think. Did you watch that?
Oh yeah. I have thoughts. So Season 1 and 2 are very much a kind of whodunit type mystery. And then a couple of episodes into season 2, I can't remember exactly, but they eventually find out who killed Laura Palmer, which is the main it's the main mystery. And sorry, the reason I'm laughing is because it just every time I think of Laura Palmer, I think to the time I went to the Comic Con where a guy tried to sell me a Funko Pop
Oh yes, you
of the
mentioned
dead.
that on here
Yeah,
once. Yeah.
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 All I wanted was Agent Dale Cooper. That's all I wanted, and he was like, "I'll throw it in for so much," and I'm like, "No, no. Even if you give me it for free, no, not a chance." I remember though at the very end of season 2, and I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's a scene where one of the characters says, "I'll see you in 25 years." And 25 years later, David Lynch, the madman, may he rest in peace, said, "Oh, amazing. We're going to come back with it and we're going to make season 3." Now, the first time I watched it, I really didn't get it. I was not a fan. And honestly, if I was to rank it, I would still put season 1 as the best of Twin Peaks. But weirdly enough, I rewatched it with my friend and we watched it like completely through together again. And I don't know what it was about that second rewatch, but I just absolutely loved it. There was just something about it. Like I started to click with a lot of the artistic choices, just the way that everything came together. Again, is it the way I would have, done Twin Peaks season 3? No, 100% not. But at the same time, obviously by my voice, I am not David Lynch. I am not one of these artistic directors or anything. And there has to just be something to be admired about that he had this vision of what he wanted to set out. You know that meme of someone going into a room, doing something, refusing to elaborate, and then they just leave. That's what I feel like David Lynch is for a lot of these films and TV shows. And I think it's interesting the way that they did it. But yeah, no, I absolutely love it. I think it's just the nostalgia and the
Yeah.
fact that the theme tune is quite possibly one of my favourites of all time. It's just so calm, it's so serene. Even watching the opening of, just the wide shots of Twin Peaks and just the peaceful nature as opposed to the chaoticness that comes after it. It makes you want to visit one of these towns. Obviously, not for the murder or for the murder mysteries or anything, but it's the perfect amount of weird that you just want to know more about these characters. You want to know more about the lore. There's just so much to unpack with it.
I'm going to have to move us on. And I want to choose something completely different now, actually, to your normal kind of things, because TV, etc., I think still fits in with your normal sort of day to day podcast. Those choices were all fantastic. Let's look at sporting events. Did you have anything for that? And yeah, the stipulation for that is they don't have to be things you've done. They can be events you've been to or even seen on TV.
So I have to say, I am not 100% a sporty guy. As people who have listened to the podcast probably know that I'm a very nerdy person who likes the comfort of his own home. But for the ones I have been to, I remember in 2006, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but was that when the World Cup was in Germany? Am I right in saying?
2006? Yes, I think it was. Yeah.
It must have been because, yeah, fun fact, I was actually there. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a big game like, oh, England against so and so or Scotland against anyone because, haha, Scotland can't qualify to save themselves. So I think it was like a really random game like Trinidad and Tobago versus Paraguay or something. It was my brother that got tickets for the time, so why we were at that game, I have no idea to this day. But that was a completely different atmosphere compared to past games that I've been to. And I have to say, I'm not really big into going to a lot of football games, but I would say that definitely stood out. And it would be cool to go to something like that again. Preferably not to one of the ones in England where they decide to riot at the drop of a hat.
Well, I was going to say that's a very cool entry. I mean, going to the
Yeah.
World Cup and a fantastic. Well, I was going to say fantastic one for me because yeah, it's definitely Germany because I remember now 2006. The reason why that sticks out to me is because Italy won that one. So that's the first thing when you say 2006 for me.
Mhm.
Going to a World Cup, that's got to be incredible. I mean, like my wife, she's not necessarily a massive football fan, but because I watch football, she therefore watches the football. But she enjoys like watching the World Cups or the Euros because it's a celebration of you see all the fans, the different fans, the different chants, the different flags, the banners, etc. So even if you're not necessarily a fan of it, you can still enjoy the event, right?
Oh, 100%. Because my partner as well, ironically enough, she isn't really a big fan of football. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not that big a fan of your like club football, especially given the very many controversies of Scottish football. So anyone listening from Scotland, you're never going to find out who I support. But but for international football, I really enjoy it, and by that I mean like the Euros and the World Cup. I feel as if it's something that unites everybody. We can all watch it and be like, even if you hate football or rather dislike it, you can all come together and be like, oh, let's support this team or that team. And my partner and I think it was, probably, was it last year or was it a couple of years ago? Must have been last year, the Euros, was it? Or maybe I can't remember because I know I got skewed because of COVID and everything. But whenever the last Euros was, and we were watching it together, like even when we were having dinner together, we were watching some of the games, and we're not that big into football, but it was cool to share that. What wasn't cool was me saying to my partner, "Oh, would you like to watch Scotland play against Germany?" And we got absolutely destroyed. Like, oh, I can't even remember the score. I think I blacked out after the fifth goal. It was grim. But again, although it was terrible at the time, you can laugh about it and look back on it. And actually, speaking of football, the second entry that I did have for this, and I don't know if you've ever watched this, but have you ever watched American soccer before? Like, I mean, like actual football from America, not American football. It is,
No.
oh, it is surreal. When I was visiting America, this was years ago, we got the chance, my family and I, to go see a match. It is so different. I cannot stress this enough. It is such a family oriented event. It's like people miss the goal and they're going, "Oh my god, oh gosh." And you've got like I kid you not, hand on heart, this is true. You had people like, people who work in the stadium like going up and down these stairs with like trays of orders so you can order from your phone or whatever, and they bring like food to you and things. And I'm watching this absolutely baffled as someone who's been to his fair share of football matches, especially in Glasgow and places like that, where you're in the family stands and they are, chanting, "The refs are, you know what, fill in your own obscenity." Whereas for this, it was such a family event that was such a culture shock to me. That just broke my brain.
It's weird, isn't it? Because no, football is yeah. I mean, I can't imagine wanting to bring kids to football games here. I've not seen football in America, but I did get to see a basketball game when I was in Florida, and it was the Orlando Magic, I think, versus is it Miami Heat, and
Mhm,
I bought tickets, and me and my wife got tickets, and we thought we'd be in sort of air quotes the home end, as it were, like
mhm.
football. But get to our seats, and there was like loads of. It was all mixed. It was like the Miami fans and the Orlando fans. I'm looking, I was thinking, "Hey, what do we do here?" But it was just I don't know if that's the whole stadium or it's just a mixed area. And I was thinking, you could never do that over here with football.
Never. No,
You could
a
never do
hundred.
that.
Like, we had a similar thing in the World Cup where we were mixed with Paraguay fans and Trinidad and Tobago fans. And I was, as a child at the time, I was terrified because I was like, oh my God, is it going to kick off? Blah, blah, blah. But fortunately, did not. We were 100% fine, which was great. But as you said, you cannot do that here.
Yeah,
You could
yeah, yeah.
100%. Um, and oh god, you're gonna. I think you're going to be baffled by my third choice in this list, by the way, because
I'm
I'm
curious
just
because this has been interesting. It's you know, because it's not something you generally talk about. So
yeah.
you've picked two fantastic things here. So
Mhm.
what is the third then?
So the third one, and I had to double check in Joey's episode if this counts technically. It is technically it's two things about wrestling, but it's kind of falls under the same banner. Because I'm not really a wrestling fan, I'm going to be honest, and there's a lot of people grabbing their steel chairs in your audience, so I'm apologise, but yeah, and one of my friends and fellow co-hosts, Martin McAllister, amazing person, amazing wrestler in the especially the Glasgow IDW wrestling scene. He does a lot of amazing work, and I remember the first time I saw his match, and honestly, just the absolute passion that IDW have for their wrestlers and everything, and especially the wrestlers themselves, building up their image, going to Comic Con and things. It was absolutely incredible. But because of Martin McAllister, he actually took me. Well, I say he took me. He didn't pay for it. I mean, like, or he just whisked me away. But we went to Stockholm together to visit a mutual friend, and somehow, while we were there, we ended up going to a WWE match. It's the only time I've ever been to a WWE match. It was one of those instances where, I mean, at the time I'd seen, The Rock and things like that, which really ages me there, but I had seen wrestlers like that on TV, and the way you watch it, you go, oh, that looks so fake, oh, that doesn't look
Yeah,
like it hurt. See, although we were quite far away, see when you're looking down and you're hearing the bones thunk
that's
against
it.
like the
Yeah.
canvas. Oh my god, I was wincing the entire time. You've got like kids in front of you going like, "Go for the throw and go!" And I'm like, Jesus Christ! Oh my gosh, it was just absolute, not horrific, but at the same time you're just like, "Oh my god, that guy's probably broken his arm." Wow. No, the professionals, they hopefully didn't. Yeah.
But this is it. I used to be a wrestling fan. Then I didn't have the ability to see it, so I kind of fell out of it. But now it's back on Netflix. I've just regressed 30 years. And Joey said it as well to me, Game Club Pod has said, it's scripted, but it's real, right? They're taking these bumps, and some of the injuries. I mean, there was a horrific injury or mistime, sorry, in a recent episode. And again, whatever you think about it, the athleticism and
Mhm.
sort of choreography of some of the moves is just at times is breathtaking to watch. I mean, the live events even more so because you've got the ability to appreciate it there and then. I mean, I've seen a Raw event in a WWE event in London years ago.
Mhm.
I saw a very amateur one in my hometown at the time, and then in the next town over, there was one of these companies that tour the country. It was just so much. It was just fun entertainment, and that's what it is, right?
Mhm. Oh, 100%. And as I was saying with my friend Martin, oh my God, the amount of stuff that he goes through with, his training routine and things like that. It's something, ironically enough, it reminds me of, that episode we did, like, I think a year or two maybe, where we were talking about what it means to be a podcaster and how
Yeah.
people think, oh, it's just you sit in front of a microphone, you don't really do much, and they really downplay it. I think 100% the same is relevant for wrestling because even with, as I said, when I watched Martin's matches in Acme Comic Con, and there was actually the last Comic Con I went to, he had like this big bag of D&D dice, which he poured
Oh, yeah.
all over the ring. Oh my god, I was actually freaking out because I'm like, if any of them fall on that, it's game over. This is horrific.
You
You
see,
know,
I
oh.
hurt my back picking the remote off the settee, let alone
I mean, I hurt my back earlier because I was on the couch editing and I was assuming the shrimp position. So for someone to, of course, be in peak shape and then fall down like that and smack against the thing, oh my god,
See, nobody but podcasters understand the perils of editing, you see.
they do. The lower back pain, that's where they get you.
See, that's your wrestling name. I've got it. The Editor.
I thought you were going to say like the lower back pain. The heat seek.
Oh dear. Look, that has been fantastic. Again, 3 great choices there,
Yeah.
varied as well. So I want to now, do you know what? I'm going to stick on something that isn't in your usual or probably what you generally tend to speak about. So albums or bands, and I've kept that generally or intentionally vague. So it can be albums if there's specific ones, or if it's just a band that you loved and you want to hear for the first time again.
Well, the one major one that I've got in this list, because I did think about it for a while, and obviously there's like hundreds of bands that I would have loved to have gone to or to see, but the one that actually is really special to me, and apologies, this again is going to be very left field, is a band called Crush 40. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, and genuinely, unless you're a Sonic fan, I would not be surprised that you didn't know. Crush 40 is a band made up of, I want to say it's 3 people, but maybe there's more. There's Johnny Gioli, there's Jun Sonoe, and there's Tony Harnell. Um, and if I'm missing anybody, if somehow Crush 40 come across this episode, apologies in advance. But they did a lot of the music for the old Sonic games. Well, the ones that I grew up with, like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and a lot of games like that. That was the music I listened to. It was some music that I absolutely resonated with. And ironically enough, yes, I did an episode in this with the wonderful Wisteria Moth, where we talked about our favourite tracks and how it's evolved over the years. I would honestly love to see them, even if it was just them, because another band that I would have loved to have seen, or not band really, but there is a show called the Sonic Symphony, and it's basically an orchestra that goes through and they do all the Sonic soundtrack throughout the years, and it just absolutely looks fantastic. And being a Sonic fan myself, I just love the idea of going there. Would I lose it? Probably. But you know what? It's worth it. So that's kind of the main band. As I said, there's like hundreds of other ones, but that's probably the main one, I would say.
I'm looking them up now. It's fascinating, actually. I didn't realize it was a specific kind of band doing music for it. And I mean, how cool is that? I mean, yeah, right through to 2024 with Shadow Generations. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they are. They seem to do quite a lot of like they do the old music as well, but I think they've got their own music and they've got a lot of covers as well. There was one that they did that I have to admit. Again, I know you hate me saying like, "Oh, I feel old," but they did one called "Crushing 30s," and it was basically about reaching your 30s and kind of burning out and things like that. And it's a great song, but it does make you feel old when they're singing about Sonic having a wife and having a job. He doesn't have enough rings. His back's hurting. That kind of thing. You're like, I mean, I didn't know I needed this song, but at the same time, it's also very sobering. As someone who, is in his 30s, it was interesting to hear, but still a good pop. But unfortunately for my partner who rides in the car with me, that is one of the bands that plays on the regular, let's just say. So,
That's
yeah.
very cool, very different. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, did you have any others, or did you say that was?
Oh, no, that was the main one. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Where am I going to go now? Do you know what? Let's do films.
No.
Sorry, I'm probably jumping about. Having said at the
Not at
start that
all.
I'm going to just go down the list in order, I've decided to completely throw you probably and change
We're
the
in
order.
anarchy here. This is anarchy views right now. Oh, films. I have got a very eclectic mix, I'm not going to lie. As I said before, there are hundreds of films I wish I could have put in this list. You know, I was genuinely scraping through thinking, do I put this one, do I put that one? The first one definitely has to be Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
100%. I don't know what it is about Lord of the Rings, because every time, and when I say Lord of the Rings, you know, I'm just gonna pretend that the whole trilogy is just one film. I suppose Return of the King, if you have to, you know, force me into a corner, but for Lord of the Rings, it was a film that I don't think I really appreciated when I was younger. You know, I thought, oh, cool. Again, like Star Wars and Star Trek, I was like, oh, cool. There's the action. Oh, there's the glitz and glamour of, you know, oh, the spectacle. But then when you actually dive into it and you see the utter beauty of the writing, obviously from Tolkien, but there are obviously some other lines in it, like at the very end of The Two Towers, where Frodo is, and you'll know this as well, but Frodo is absolutely beaten up. He is, you know, he's down and he's just so wiped out, and he's like, why are we even bothering? What are we even fighting for? And you know, Sam comes back to him, and you know, he gives this impassioned speech about there's still hope in the world and it's worth fighting for. Honestly, it's one of my favourite quotes of all time. I'm totally paraphrasing and butchering it, but you know, it's just such a beautiful film. It's a beautiful set of films, and I think that people who look at this as, oh, it's just another fantasy film with goblins and elves and things like that, it does a disservice to it. It's a piece of art.
No, I get you with that. It's you know, I'm not going to say that it's the only film that's done this, but it came out at the right time, and the world that they created on screen was just fantastic. That whole fantasy world, wasn't it? And at the time, you know, I mean, I haven't revisited them for a long time, but just the effects were just great at the time. It was a proper, you could sit there in the cinema and be enthralled by it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I actually saw these in the cinema. That's how long ago it was. But I remember seeing that. And again, it was when I was younger, because I didn't see the first one. I had no interest, but it was a friend at the time who, during a sleepover, showed me the first one. And I remember, I said this in our Lord of the Rings month episodes, but I was so annoyed that the first one ended on a cliffhanger,
Hmm.
because I wasn't expecting that. I thought, oh, there's going to be, you know, they climb up to Mount Doom, they destroy the ring, and, you know, obviously they didn't. And I was really angry at that at the time. Like, so I've just sat here for 2 hours for nothing. But obviously, looking back on it, I now watch the extended editions. I just love it. It is, honestly, see, when the older you get, there's so many good quotes. I'm just double checking the quote that I was talking about, and it is indeed, he says, there's still some good left in the world and it's worth fighting for rather than hope, but technically, tomato, potato. But there's honestly, you know, so many beautiful moments, and it makes me tear up every time. I watched it for the first time with my partner, oh, I think a year or two ago. Oh my god, we were tearing up at practically most of them. Like the Boromir scene where,
Yeah,
you know, he
yeah.
passes away. I would have followed you anywhere, my captain, my king. The scene out of Helm's Deep where it's like, look to my coming in the east. It's just, you know, what can men do against reckless hate? The charge of the Rohirrim at Pelennor Fields and Return of the King, which is bloody stunning, you know. It's just, as you said, it's incredible cinematography that holds up even today. The story is beautiful, it's timeless. It's a classic good versus evil fight that
Yes.
doesn't feel overly basic, you know, that way. It's like you've got your, you know, oh, you've got Sauron, the evil eye, and everything, and you've got Christopher Lee, who, of course, made an appearance at the dinner party episode that we did. Um,
See, these films for me did, and I'm not a massive cinema goer, but made me do two things I'd never done. And this sounds dodgy. Made me do two things I'd never done at the cinema.
Go on.
Stay tuned for part two of no. So one was see the same film twice at the cinema. It
Mhm.
was the first time I did that. So the first film, I loved it so much. Me and my wife actually, she was really into them as well. With that, we went and saw it again. And the second thing was the last film. At the time, my wife was feeling ill, and there was no one else available. And I'm not normally one that goes. Well, I'd never been to the cinema on my own, but I went to the cinema on my own to make sure I got the third one on the big screen. So yeah, that was just my two of my memories about that trilogy. Is that it made me do something a couple of times that I wouldn't normally do to see a film. What's your second, or have you chosen all three films as your three choices?
Oh, absolutely. No. I've got. I do have two more and a quick honourable mention, but yeah, no, definitely. Um, so the second film that I've chosen is surprisingly, again, it's the complete opposite. I would say probably of Lord of the Rings, and it is Hot Fuzz.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think that it's been a while since I've seen a film that is both the perfect blend of action comedy, but it's just I don't know, just everything seems to fall into place because I rewatched it recently, and I think honestly, I think it's just an incredible film. I think all the jokes land. I think that the setups to a lot of the jokes, like for example, there's a joke earlier on where Simon Pegg's character, he says, "Who's got a gun round these parts?" and someone says everyone and their mum has them. He says like who, and they says, "Oh, farmers," and who else? Farmers' mums. And then later on, he gets shot at by a farmer, and ironically enough, his mum. And oh, it's perfect. Everything, the setups, the jokes, they're just brilliant. Absolutely.
2007. I'm just
I
looking it up.
know how.
That's incredible.
God, it's nearly 20 years old. That's scary to think. Actually, I remember when it came out. I never saw it. I don't think I would have been old in that. Would I? In fact, no, I might have been actually.
The only thing I've got to say about this is I remember thinking at the time that it was probably my favourite film with the trilogy in the sense of how it starts to where it ends up is completely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because you think, oh, are we getting like quite a serious? I mean, not serious because it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, but are we getting like this really interesting murder mystery? And we do get that surprisingly, but we get such the perfect blend of comedy. One of the things that I absolutely love is the reveal at the end where we find out, again, I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but we find out who's doing it and they're saying why they murdered. I think it's like a bad actor, and they turn around and say, "Oh well, they murdered Bill Shakespeare." And Simon Pegg's horrified, and he goes, "What?" And then he realizes he means like Bill Shakespeare as in William Shakespeare
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
did a
yeah.
poor Romeo and Juliet adaptation. That will always make me cackle. By the way, see the really poor rendition of Romeo and Juliet, and then it cuts to them singing love me" at the end. And it's just like, this is, it's perfect, honestly.
What a cast as well. Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Jim Broadbent, Paddy Considine, Timothy Dalton, who, if I remember right, is bloody good in it. Bill Nye, Edward Woodward, Bill Bailey, Adam Buxton, Olivia Colman. It goes on and on. I mean, that's just Martin Freeman's in it as well. So it's just a fantastic cast as well, right?
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely, yeah.
What's your next one?
So the next one, and I'll get the honourable mention quickly out of the way here,
Okay.
but because I've got two quick films here, but the
I'll allow the honourable mention if you do it in your Christopher Lee voice.
please,
You don't
Dan.
have to, but if you do, that'll be brilliant.
It began in 2015. Dan, that's not how this podcast works. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging me. Right.
Sorry. So the honourable mention is just because I'd feel bad if I didn't mention this, but the Terminator film,
Okay.
where obviously I wasn't old enough when it came out in cinemas, but years ago I actually got the opportunity to go see it at the well, it was like a small theatre in Glasgow that was showing a double bill of Terminator 1 and 2, which I wasn't old enough. I don't think I was even born for either when they came out. And one of my friends who became my co-host, and Adam, him and I actually met there for the first time, and that's what led to our friendship kind of blossoming. And it was an incredible experience, because I feel as if Terminator, at least 1 and 2, but especially the first one, it is the nearest to perfection in a sci-fi film I think you can get, and I will maintain that. I will die in this hill because honestly, I feel as if the first Terminator, although the second one gets a lot of praise, which rightfully so, I feel as if the first one, other than maybe the janky like effects nowadays, it is just absolutely incredible.
I think you're right. I think the second one just amps it up in all areas and is a great spectacle. But the first one is just that gritty thriller, is that vibe. It's that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great like you said, sci-fi film.
Yeah, because, and again, funny enough, we also did a month of Terminator content for the podcast, but it is one of these ones where I think when they make future films, they always look at the cliff notes of the films, like the I'll be back and everything like that. They don't really think of the what made the first one so gritty and so good,
Yes, yeah.
especially for the second one. They all tried to make it, based off the second one, and it's just a mess. But actually, speaking of action, that leads me on to the final film that I chose, and that is The Raid. Um,
Okay.
the reason that I've chose this one, and it's quite a short answer, quite disappointing, but it's ruined action films for me
Right.
because of how good it is. So, and again, there's hundreds of films that I could put into this category, so you can lump them all together, like Ip Man with Donnie Yen, Police Story with Jackie Chan. You've got Hard Boiled, you've got all of these action films, but with The Raid, I remember watching it with my friend Andrew and a couple other people in university for the first time, and I was so used to watching, and this gonna sound so weird, but like action films that we've got from Hollywood, and it's like the kind of Steven Seagal esque ones,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like the fast cuts and everything. Whereas with this, oh my god, you see everything, and it's just this flow of I think it's Silat or Silat, because it's these police officers that have to raid this building, and then they get trapped in with all the criminals and they're trying to kill them. And it's based in Indonesia, so it's based with this martial art called Silat, and it is an aggressive form of martial arts. Oh my god. But the action, you can't take your eyes away from it. It's so fluid, it's so aggressive, it's in your face, and it just ruined action films, because you go from that to something like Taken. There's no contest. There's just no contest whatsoever. It's amazing.
Another great sort of varied and great selection of films there. Yeah, and you can't argue. Oh, I can't argue with The Raid. Yeah, well, I mean, what a
Yeah.
film. So,
hmm
right, we are going to move on, and we are going to do. Tell you what, let's do books.
Again, an eclectic mix, because I had quite a few that I thought, oh, what do I choose? Um, One of the first ones that I chose was, and it's been a hot while since I read it, but it's called Five People You Meet in Heaven. Just out of curiosity, have you read that? Like, because
No, I
I
mean,
think it's,
I'm not much of a
oh,
reader anymore, but definitely not one I've heard of. I think.
see, I have to admit, I'm the same. See, ever since university, genuinely, my interest in reading just went down, because that way when you're forced to read always, and then you're just like, I don't take pleasure from this anymore. But I remember reading that kind of before, and it's basically about a man who, I think he's in his 80s or something, and he ends up saving this little girl from it's like an amusement park that, like, a ride goes wrong or something, but he saves her life essentially. And he ends up dying. Spoilers. So he ends up going to heaven, but it's not the traditional, oh, there's St. Peter at the gates. It's more this tale of him meeting five people that have influenced his life. And I don't know why it was so impactful for me at the time. It's written by Mitch Albom, like, absolutely fantastic author, but he manages to create this story that is just so fascinating to me because it opened up my eyes as well to the idea that, and again, I suppose the butterfly effect maybe is the best way to describe this, but there's a lot of choices that you have in your life where you are going to go one way and then something happens and then you have to go another way. And these small choices, even if it's like, oh, did I go to the shops today? Oh, no, I'm going to stay at home. If you went to the shops that day, oh, maybe you would have met someone who would have influenced your life. You don't know what's going to happen based on the people you meet in your life. And I think it's just so impactful for that. I just think it was, I don't know, it really caught my attention and interest at the time. Again, it's been years since I've read it. I'm probably praising this book and then I'll go back to read it and go, oh no.
See,
Yeah.
I'm just looking it up as you speak, and I can tell though it's not going to be. It's not a cheery book, is it?
I mean, he dies in the first 5 minutes. Like,
Well,
it's-
it's just it's not even that so much. Although sorry, Eddie, but it's not that. It's more that I mean, I'm only reading a synopsis because it sounds like it would be one I'd be interested in. I see it was in the New York Times bestseller list for 95 weeks. But yeah, obviously, as you said, meeting 5 people that were part of his life. Yeah, it feels like it can be quite intense, or it's going to be quite intense.
I remember the ending being intense. That's all I'll say. Like, the last person he meets was very intense.
I'm very interested in this. I'm very
Yeah, I
interested in
would
this.
honestly recommend it because it's the same author. For any book clubs listening out there, it's the same author that wrote Tuesdays with Maury,
Yeah, I've
which
just seen that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, which seems to be the joke book. Like whenever you have a book club and they go, "Oh, are we reading Tuesdays with Maury?" Because oh, look at that. Yeah, no, it's a
It's
fantastic.
actually, and sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt, but it's it says the non-author here, but at 194 pages, it feels like it's quite a decent size book as well, like not too long. And
yeah, because ironically enough, I was looking through my book collection before we came on tonight, just to double check how big it was, or if there was any books I was missing. And yeah, it's quite a relatively thin book. Like it's not 194 pages. That's not tiny, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's a decent size, and from what I remember, the pace is all right. There's not any time I think that you think, "Oh God, we're at person 2 and we're 100 pages in," kind of thing. See, I say that, and see if you read this and you get to that page, you're going to be angrily messaging me like, "Why did you make me read this book, Satsu?" Why?
No, well, it's funny. I had T.A. Shalano on from the Middle Age podcast, and there's a book he's mentioned that I'm really interested in. So I'm definitely making a note of this. So yeah, no, thank you for this. See, this is why I love doing this series as
Yeah,
well. It's not only finding out what makes you tick, but I get suggestions. So
yeah.
okay, so you've kicked that off with a really good sounding book there. So okay, what's your next choice?
So the second one is again the complete opposite of
Okay.
that, because there's honestly the amount of books that I cycled through. Because I was thinking of childhood classics, especially Anthony Horowitz books. Oh my god, so many of them. But the second one is a book from the Warhammer 40k universe called, I can't even remember the name because there's different titles per like obviously per book, but it's about a guy called Caiaphas Kane, and the reason I'm emphasizing his name there is because I was calling him Cyphus Kane for the longest time, and nobody picked me up on it and said that, oh, it's actually this it's this pronunciation, and honestly, my face was red. But basically, what that's about is the whole setting is that the galaxy's at war constantly. There's not really good things happening. Let's face it, and it's a bit like Blackadder in space. Because there's a lot of serious books about this particular setting, about the Warhammer 40k, because it's set in like the year 40,000, or rather the 41st millennium. It's a brutal world. You've got horrible demons, you've got bug creatures, you've got like metallic mummies coming after you, or metallic skeletons technically, but and orcs and things. So it follows this guy called Caiaphas Kane, who is a commissar who like leads this group of soldiers who basically they are cannon fodder. They're getting shipped out by like the thousands and they've got no chance. But he somehow ends up winning every single like obstacle that he comes across because it's just purely by luck. So in the very first book, and spoilers for this, but in the first book, he decides that he doesn't want to be eaten by these huge gribbly monsters, so he tries to flee, but he ends up coming across like the queen bug creature who are called Tyranids, but he comes across like the main bug creature controlling the hive mind, so he has no choice but to fight it, and then he ends up killing it, which then causes the rest of the bugs to scatter because they don't know what to do. And then, they're like, why were you so far out from the barracks? And, he has to lie and be like, oh, it's because, oh, I was scouting ahead, not admitting, obviously, that he is basically falling upwards into these glorious positions. And a fun fact as well, the book that I wrote, the sci-fi book, Canvas, I actually based my main character off of Caiaphas Kane, red coat and all, but I based it completely off of him. This guy who falls upwards and everybody loves him. Oh, he's the savior of this and that, and he's just living with this guilt. Like
The right
Jesus,
person in the right time.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's exactly like Blackadder in space, because eventually he
I
gets
love that
a.
description, by the way. Sorry, I love that.
It's honestly true, because he gets a what's called a guardsman, like someone to follow him around and help him and whatnot. And the thing about him is he is impervious. I don't know if it's because he's stupid or just the way he's born, but he's born with a thing that he can't be manipulated by like psychic people who are very much a dangerous threat. So whenever they come across people like that, they can't read him or anything, and they think, "Oh my god, he's so powerful!" He's just a regular guy, and it's just the two of them bumbling through the galaxy, and it is so good. Honestly, it was one of the first 40k books that I read, thanks to, ironically enough, the friend who introduced me to Twin Peaks and TNG. We love a lot of sci-fi together, to be honest, but it's such a good book.
See, I'm looking this up again, so I'm quite interested in this because I love the whole sci-fi and the comedy, like you said, the Blackadder in space kind of vibe.
Mhm.
What's interesting, there seem to be, I think, around 10 novels or so. Then there's short stories, but
Mhm.
there's the best order to read it in, and everyone has their own view on which order to read it in. Yeah, this seems like a really interesting set of books. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, this is the issue now because when Marie was on here, she's got me interested in a series of books from there as well. I just don't have time to read them because of this podcast. So when I
Dan,
come
this
to
is.
retire, which well, I was going to say when I come to retire, which at my age is probably not far away, I'll be able to sit down and finally read them.
No, I was going to say, this is when you're supposed to be plugging your Audible sponsorship here. For only £1 a month, you can listen. No, for legal reasons, that's a joke, sorry. You know what I mean?
Okay, so as you said, two very contrasting choices there. So where's the third one going to take us?
I thought I'd just go with a classic here. As I said, there's loads of series I could have gone for. As I was saying with Anthony Horowitz, he had a very good series about, again, two bumbling, like, teenage detectives. I think it was called the Diamond Brothers or something. And fun fact, I've actually got a signed copy of one of those books. One of my friends actually got. Well, he was at a book fair thing when we were in school, and he got a signature of it. Anyway, so side tangent. There's a series of unfortunate events as well by Lemony Snicket and things. There's loads of them, but the one I chose, I decided to go old school and go with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens,
Okay.
which I know it's such a basic, and again, I won't swear on your podcast, but a basic, what answer. I just love A Christmas Carol. I love the story. I love the idea of someone overcoming their flaws and their faults. And again, maybe this is getting a bit sappy and sentimental, especially for a Casting Views episode. I apologise, but
No,
um,
you get sentimental. It's fine.
yeah, because I mean, obviously, we all know that the best version of A Christmas Carol was the Muppets version.
Absolutely,
10,
I'm with you there. Yeah.
10 out of 10 film. But I love the message of A Christmas Carol and how timeless it's become, of a guy who is well, as the name suggests, he is a Scrooge. He has become a verb, or sorry, he's become an adjective. Don't be a Scrooge, but he overcomes his, grinchiness and his just horrible nature to realize that if he doesn't change and become a better person, then it's just going to lead to more terrible things. And it's such an important message, I feel, nowadays, where, especially online and things, obviously not going into specifics, but you see a lot of people criticizing others, saying, oh, you did this particular thing, and oh, you did that. And again, I'm talking about very minor things, not the obviously egregious ones, but you have people who are arguing and trying to rip each other apart. But that means that there's a lot of people on that scale that don't have the chance to either redeem themselves, to be able to see the error of their ways, kind of thing. And I think that is such an important lesson that I think that everybody needs to learn. That, I mean, you can have periods in your life where you are an utter Scrooge and oh, you're not you struggle to do the right thing. But as long as you're willing to put the work in, and granted, I know there's an irony of that oh, he got scared by three ghosts, that's the only reason he's good. But at least they took that step and they took that decision to like help Bob Cratchit, Tiny Tim, etc. And the fact that it's so well covered, to be honest, ever since it was written, it's just astounding. That, and it has one of the best lines in literature I think I've ever heard in my life. There's more gravy than grave about you. When he's talking to Jacob Marley and he says, oh, you could, he's like, he refuses to believe he's in front of him. He's like, oh, you could be a bit of undigested beef or a blot of mustard. He says, yes, there's more gravy than grave about you. And I love it. I think it's 10 out of 10. What I will say is, though, and I think I've told you that before, that I I had an embarrassing moment when I went to see I think it was the Jim Carrey version in the cinema, and I was really confused as to why there was one Jacob Marley. Um, because at that time I had only read or rather, I had only watched the Muppets Christmas Carol, and you know how they get Stanley and
Yes,
Waldorf
yeah, yeah,
as Marley and Marley. So I
yeah,
just assumed, oh, it must be,
yeah,
Jacob and his brother. I was watching it like, why
brilliant.
is there only one Jacob Marley? And I'm like, oh yeah, because there's only one. So that was
No,
sobering, but
I would say, look, great choice. Don't ever be ashamed to pick an old classic like that as a choice because ultimately, fundamentally, there are only so many stories in the world, and to this day, how many films are there where you get the bully gets shown the error of their ways through one of the people he's bullying, or the workaholic who's got no time for
yeah.
friends and family, but then he sees the error of their ways. All this story, this theme gets repeated sort of and it will be for infinity, right? It's a classic story arc, right?
Oh, 100%. And the fact that people are trying to replicate it even nowadays is amazing.
Right, we're going to move on, and you'll probably notice I've not come to games yet because I'm intentionally don't want to get through that just yet because obviously you talk about games a lot. So I am going to go over to gigs and shows.
So this one was a little bit shorter. I was trying to think of the gigs that I went to recently, because I've been to Keen and again I was spamming you with
Nice.
the messages. I went to Travis recently. Did I tell you about this?
I can't
Um,
remember if you did or not
Oh,
now.
it was so funny. So I went with it was me, my partner, and my parents went as well, and we went to see Travis. And I remember there was a Scottish singer slash band. I can't remember his name. It was like, oh, that's a terrible. Anyway, he came on and he's like roaring into the mic and things. And the reason I was so confused was because before it there was this woman who sang and she was absolutely incredible. And then I thought, all right, after that, it must be Travis. No, it was this other guy. But I was looking at my partner confused, going, is that Travis? They look awful young. I thought they were been going on for years. And my parents were, well, my mum especially, she was howling. She was like, how do you think I was Travis? I was like, I don't know. I just assumed they would come on after that woman. But yeah, no, that was fantastic. I've actually been to Ed Sheeran as well, which that was an interesting experience trying to get out.
What was that? Sorry.
Ed Sheeran.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, that was a good one, but if I had to choose, I'm just thinking, like, Ed Sheeran, that was a great one. I would
You
probably
know,
like to.
no, I was just a bit surprised there because yeah, you've definitely not mentioned that one to me.
Yeah, because it was my partner who's like quite a fan, or was at the time. Anyway, I don't know. I should really ask her if she's still a fan. But Ed, if you're listening, please reach out. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, for gigs and shows, I've been to as well, like a lot of theatre shows and things like musicals and whatnot. Some better than others, I'm not gonna lie. One I would have loved to have seen, and again, this is like in hindsight because I don't think I appreciated it. Although I loved it, I didn't appreciate it as much when I was younger, and that is Les Mis, which honestly, like I know technically that's not a gig. It's gig adjacent, let's just say, but
No, I said
uh,
shows, gigs slash
yeah,
shows. I'll class that. That's a
yeah.
show. So.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of like other musicals I've been to, and I've seen like Blood Brother, Sister Act, those kind of ones. Avenue Q, that's a great one as well.
Oh, I never got to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. It always comes back. Surprise! It's like a boomerang show. They always say, "Oh, it's the last time," and it's like, "No, you're coming back. Don't be daft. Give it a year or two. They'll be back." But Les Mis, I don't know. Again, I love the story of it, and maybe it's been sanitized by the musical. We don't talk about the Russell Crowe film with Hugh Jackman. I've got nothing against Hugh Jackman. It's just Russell Crowe singing because Javert, one of the characters, is one of my favourites of all time. I just think he's such a fascinating character. He's like a inspector of the French police who sees the world black and white, no matter your crime. If you're guilty, you're guilty. And then, of course, throughout the story, he has to wrestle with this idea of, oh, there's grey shades in between. And, it's really fascinating. So, Les Mis, definitely. And the other one, this is going to be a bit of a weird one, but quite a quick one. But years ago, I want to say about, I think it was 2017, that my family and I went down to Liverpool, which you'll know is famous for a particular band there. But we actually went down to the Cavern Club, um, granted during the day. And it was like I can't remember the guy. I think it was just like a cover. It was just like doing covers, obviously, of Beatles songs. And honestly, that was just really cool. Being able to go to the Cavern Club and see where they used to perform and everything. And it still felt quite, although obviously they had the memorabilia and things all over the place, it still felt cool to kind of stand in that piece of history, which I know Liverpudlians probably think, oh, it's just another place for them because it's there all the time. But it was really interesting to see. So yeah, I would probably say that as well.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, not seen Lemmies. This is why I knew it was a good one to ask you because I know you often put your pictures in the chats. You've been to quite a few shows, and
Mhm.
yeah, my wife, that's what she really enjoys doing. So we actually went to one at the weekend, and they're always reinventing what they can do with stages now as well, aren't they? Sort of the scenery
Oh,
and the effects on a live show, and it's getting better and better.
oh, 100%. Because I think it was a couple of months ago, and I feel bad for my partner because I took her to, it was a showing of Les Mis, and I thought, oh, right, it must be, the actual stage show. And then as soon as we came in, we were like, oh, no, it's not. It's just the actors, stepping up to the mics to sing. They still have the clothes on, obviously, and everything, but it was just that. What I then didn't realise was not only was it the original cast, it was like Michael Ball and Alfie Bow
Oh well,
singing.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that tune. I was like, that looks like Alfie Bow, and I was like, holy damn, that is Alfie Bow. And Bonnie Langford, she was there as well. I'm like, what is going on here? But I feel bad because although they were incredible, although granted he's earned it, but Alfie Bow does like to milk it. I'm not gonna lie, see his rendition of Bring Me Home took him about 5 minutes to warm up before he actually got into the Bring Me Home, like that. I'm never gonna attempt to do an impersonation. He is excellent, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of very older women at the front, like standing up clapping for him. It was so funny. But yeah, like I'd like to take her to the actual, like performance musical, but yeah, it was great.
We're going to move on. And if people are listening and saying, why do you keep moving them on so quickly? It's just we've got 3 more subjects still to go. So I want to make sure we get them all in. Let's do food. Subject that's very close to my heart, and you know that.
So I have 3 particular ones, and don't get me wrong, they're very quick for this round. Pizza being the first one. Absolutely love a
Thank
good
you.
pizza. 100% love a good pizza. I am a pizzaholic, as it were. If pizza's on the menu, I'll probably go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The second one is a particular, I mean, I suppose you would class it as maybe katsu curry. The reason I'm kind of hesitant about the way I class this is because when I met my partner and her and I were, of course, cooking for one another, and nowadays she's certainly dominated the kitchen. Not that I'm complaining, but she'll be like, no, no, go away, I'm cooking. And she makes some of the best curries like I think I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
She is an amazing cook. Love her so much. Not just for her food, obviously, but that as well, that her cooking is just fantastic. And I don't know, every time I have like a kind of katsu curry tasting kind of thing, because we get these cubes, I think it's called Golden House or something. You can get them at Sainsbury's and places like that. And basically you just shove them in a pot with, like, I don't know, tomatoes, your veggies and things, and your meat and whatever. Just stir them until it all melts together. It is fantastic. So that, like, makes me feel very nostalgic. The final one though is, and you're going to be quite confused at this, but it's lentil soup. But not just any lentil soup. So you might think, like, that watery rubbish or anything. No, no, there's a particular lentil soup that my granddad used to make us when we were younger. And then, of course, he passed that recipe onto my mum. And then obviously I learned off of her, and now ironically enough my partner's learned a particular soup as well. And I love the fact that although lentil soup's a relatively easy dish to make, it's like a special recipe to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So when I say lentil soup, I mean that particular lentil soup. I don't just mean you know who you are listening in the audience, the ones who shove lentils into water and call it a day. Like, no, you have to melt them. You have to melt all those veggies. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I remember I was out for this walking group when I was younger, and we came back to like this, like where we started, and there was another group there who were making soup for like a charity event. And they turned around and they said, "Oh, do you want a plate of soup?" And we were all like, "Oh, great." And granted, that was all it was. It was water with veggies in it, really, really poor. But I thought, you know what? It's kind of them for them to give us free soup. To which they turned around and started charging everyone for the plates of soup. It was, yeah, it was not worth it. But
Yeah.
hey ho. But yeah, lentil soup. That's my
Well,
last
what
one.
I would say to those 3 choices, I love them all, is pizza, good, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
I love my pizza as
Mhm.
well. Katsu curry, yeah, I was introduced to it. I've mentioned it on one of the other pods. I can't remember when, but me and my wife were in Camden and we wanted something to eat, and there was a stall there. They served katsu curry, had never had it before.
Mhm.
Got one to share between us, and we wolfed at that. It was so nice, and yeah, since then I'm a huge fan. And soup, my wife, she makes a lot of homemade soups, and yeah, there's something about a good homemade soup, and like you said, where you've tweaked the recipe or it's one that's proven through the generations.
Yeah.
It's something nice, comforting, right?
Because again, like, I'm not criticizing Big Soup or the Heinz lovers out there, or
No, no,
things
no.
like that. But there is just something nice about like a homely, home cooked meal and things. And especially when you know that that person's making it with the intention of like, oh, well, depending if they burn it or not, which I have to admit I've done a couple of times by
Hmm.
accident, but you know,
Yeah.
like they're making it because they care about people and
Yeah.
everything, and it is a recipe that I would love to, pass on to people because it is good and it's something that just needs to be shared. So yeah.
Okay. Right. Just two more left. Let's do life. And I always say to people, this could be anything. I'm not asking you to get overly personal, but are there three things in life?
Oh, 110%. There again, and not to be like, oh, there's so many. Oh my gosh! But honestly, I'm not going to do the Christopher Lee thing to be like, there's so many. Like my metal album that I clearly recorded. No, I'm only kidding. Um, so the first one, and I was thinking about like travel and things like that, and weirdly enough, I would say it would be the time that my partner and I met for the first time, and we met in China. And oh my god, it was honestly such like where we went and everything. It was such a beautiful country. There were so many beautiful things to see, and it was during the Chinese New Year, which I have to say there was a lot of places that we went where I was the only Westerner there. So I don't know if you've if you ever want to experience, the stranger going into the saloon and the
Oh, yeah.
piano
Yeah.
stops and everyone looks
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Not as threatening, like no one was threatening at all, but it was like you go into places and they kind of look as if, oh, interesting. It's like, why are you here? Oh, okay, fair enough. My favourite one was we went up to a temple up in this like hill, and this wee boy whispered something to his parents, and they said, "Oh, don't be so rude." And I said to my partner, "What did they say?" And she said, "Oh, they said, oh look, it's a ghost." The picture. I'm a pasty white Scottish man, so I took it. And there was another one where we were in a small, like, kind of touristy place for the locals there, and I remember one boy turned round and whispered, "Oh, Dad, look, a foreigner." Or rather, he said in Mandarin, they said, Baba, lawai, lawai." And he said, "Don't be rude." Like the dad said, "Don't be rude, don't say that." So he paused for a minute, and then he turned to his mum and said, Mama, lawai, lawai." I was like, yeah, of course. But that was, honestly, I think that was like an incredible experience. Like, I mean, I've been to lots of places in my life so far, and there's many more that I want to visit. But China was just, it was so different, but just everything about it, I just loved when I was there. And then the kind of allure fell off when we got to Shanghai one day, and yeah, everybody was a tourist there. I was just like, yeah, I'm not special anymore. Okay, fair enough. But no, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you see, you've told me bits and pieces before, and I think, it sounds absolutely. I can absolutely see why you've chosen it because it sounded like an absolutely wonderful trip. So yeah, absolutely get it.
The second one, though, again, it's maybe not as, exciting and wondrous, but one of my friends, of course, I brought him up earlier, Martin McAllister, and he used to run our D&D sessions. And I've known Martin since high school and everything. I've known him for years. Amazing person. He used to run our D&D sessions, and like when I was in university and then kind of when I left, and we had like a lot of times where we got together, and again, not just him and I, it was also with other friends like our friend Adam and whatnot. And yeah, it was absolutely. I don't know. There was just something special about that time because it was, again, pre-COVID. It was a time where we all kind of got together. We could all share and update each other in our lives and whatnot. And it was kind of like a cozy time. It was like a lovely bookend before the world went on fire, essentially. And again, there's similar moments like when my friend Andrew and I, when we were at university together, we would stay up till like 2 o'clock ordering like Domino's pizza and things. And life of a student, as it were. Okay, maybe 1 o'clock, but um, just those moments. And again, it's nothing bombastic or look at this amazing thing. It's just those moments that I was able to spend with my friends, and honestly, they're absolutely incredible people, my friends. Like, without them, I wouldn't have gotten this far with the podcast or with many things if I didn't have them supporting me. So, honestly, absolutely fantastic time. That, and it opened my eyes to the amount of terrible films that are out there. And not just the surface level ones. It gets
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And was there anything else?
So the final one, and again, this is quite a sentimental one, is the podcast itself.
That's fair.
Yeah, the podcast is one of my just favourite things that I've done, I think, in my life. Obviously there's a lot of like more personal stuff, and there's a lot of things that I could have included in this list. So I don't want anyone listening who's going, "Hey, wait a minute, Satsu." It's like, why haven't you mentioned this or why haven't you mentioned that? There's so many. Like, we could be
Yeah.
here all day with an
Yeah.
episode for that. But the reason I bring up the podcast is because obviously the 2020s, horrible time. It was a time where no one was certain about what was going to happen. I tried my hand at streaming. I kind of had mixed feelings about it. And then I finally tried doing podcasting. And without podcasting, I don't think I would have ever found as much confidence to do things that I do, especially with meeting people like yourself, being able to reach out to people. Because without the podcast, to be honest, I don't think you and I would be talking.
Oh no, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be talking to like the Game Club pods, with Howdy Beans podcast with Luke, with Marie, with honestly just the Seismic Cinema as well, just the whole PodPack and all of the podcasters out there. And again, it's another thing that helped bring me and my friends closer together. Like, without the podcast, I would not have been able to. Well, we still would have talked, but it's quite difficult nowadays because all my friends, and I mean, you'll know this as well, but all my friends have things going on in their life, so they can't always be glued to the phone, unlike me. But no, they all have different things, myself included, jokes aside. But having the podcast means that we're able to, catch up with episodes and to be able to see how each other's doing before we talk about things that we love or, maybe not like as much. So it's been a great way to meet people, to kind of push myself out my comfort zone, but not too much. If you know what I mean, like, I'm not going up to people. Like, I did that twice, I think, in fact once, at an Acme Comic Con, where I was literally in the field being like, "What do you think of Comic Con? Please, just answer quickly." I was terrified. I'd never again. Well, maybe, who knows? But yeah, it was, again, the podcast and being able to meet everyone. On the kind of minor downside, now everybody thinks I'm a red panda. I mean, for the illusion, technically, but I feel as if I branded myself so
You mean you're
much.
not?
Yeah, I know. My red panda lawyer's like shaking his head, going, "No,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
no." But like, yeah, I feel as if I have ingrained myself. Like, people look at a red panda and, you know, like, they'll look at that and think, "Oh, look, that's Chatsunami's long lost relative," or, like, something bad happens to a red panda, and they go, "Oh, what would Chatsunami think of
Yeah,
this?"
yeah.
That kind of thing.
No, I mean, I think it's really valid to pick the podcast. I mean, I think myself as well. When I say how different life could have been, I'm not saying, fundamentally I'd be in a different place, but, it does help with, like you said, the confidence, the speaking. It also, just to the general talking to yourselves, the other PodPack members, playing online with Joey, Alex, the Game Club pod, and
Mhm.
just the amount of time we spend talking. I was thinking, it's that time and some of the experiences we've shared. Like, I've met Antonio the Cultworthy, I've met Justin. I've met, super familiar with the Wilsons. I've received a gift when I got married from the Sugar Coated Murder sisters, who are wonderful.
Wow.
And I'm thinking all these moments I wouldn't have had without the podcast. It's incredible.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So no, absolutely. I think look, it's another great selection for you. So thank you for sharing those. Well, now on to the last one. It's going to be games. I might just ask you to list these, and we might just talk generally because we are almost coming to the end. But and I hope you didn't mind me leaving games till the end. It's just because I think that's generally one of the things you talk a lot about. So, and I do say they can be board games, so they can be video or board games.
So the first one I've got in this list is Monopoly. No, I'm only joking. Second one, chess.
Yeah.
This is when you find out I'm a massive chess nerd. No, legal reasons joke. So I do have, like a couple, and don't worry, I'll list through them quickly. It's funny because when I was thinking about these particular games, I kept thinking, if you had asked me at a different point in my life what games that I would have liked to have forgotten, I definitely would have chosen something different. And I was thinking of, like, when I was younger, Sonic Adventure, and I think it's something Joey actually brought up in his Banjo Kazooie.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
those kind of platformer games I grew up with, and absolutely fantastic games that I would love to forget and come back to. But as I've grown older, there's so many games that I honestly would love to just replay. One of which being, I said this cheekily to you when I sent you the list, that Mass Effect being one of them, because
Yes.
it's such a good game. And bar Banjo Kazooie, all the games on this list have an episode of Chatsunami. I just want to point that out. You are completely right. So Mass Effect, of course, you and I talked about it in length with Luke and Marie from the PodPack. It's just a fantastic game series. Made me cry. Speaking of making me cry, the other one was To the Moon, which was a game, again, is one that if I played it when I was younger, I genuinely think that I would have not appreciated it as much. It is a game, again, you're going to think I'm really depressing with five people you meet in heaven and now this. I apologise. But again, it's about a company that goes into the mind of dying patients or clients, I suppose, and basically they alter their memories so they can remember before they pass on. Oh, they won the Super Bowl, very apt for this episode, or I don't know, they ended up becoming the president, something like that. But for this game, there is a guy who's dying and his wife had passed on and he wants to go to the moon, and they can't really understand why he wants to go to the moon. And then, of course, they root through his memories. They find out that, why he wants to go to the moon. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a beautiful game. Gameplay wise, it's really bad, I would say. Or not bad, but just quite lackluster because it's made in like RPG Maker. But story wise, it made me cry at the end. The sequel, Finding Paradise, cried at that, and Pasta Factory, there was a couple of tears, but they're just beautiful stories. And again, it's that whole idea of the human condition and things like
Yeah.
that. Why do you want to do this? The importance of relationships, just beautiful, beautiful game. The second game, which is completely the opposite of that, is Deadly Premonition. Now,
Okay. Yes.
the reason for that is, again, going back to my very good friend Adam, that we met during our watch of Terminator 1 and 2 at the cinema. And then after that, we started hanging out a lot more. And one of the first games that we played together, like all the way fully, before COVID was Deadly Premonition. And we talk about this in length in our episode, but long story short, I remember I would go to his flat after, I think, maybe after work, like a couple of times. And then there was one time where he was coming over and he was like, "Oh, do you have your Xbox set up and everything?" I was like, "Yeah, but I don't know if you used to get the hard drives at the very top of the old Xboxes,
Yeah.
or Xbox 360s, I should preface. But yeah, he wasn't sure if that would like work with mine. So he basically brought his whole Xbox with him and we finished it. And again, because it's very similar to Twin Peaks story wise, it's one of these games that normally I would say this is a terrible game. Why would you like something like that? It was honestly, say by the end of it, it was just such a passion project by the lead creator, Swery65. It is honestly, it was a special game and it hit all the right notes for us. And again, if I played it by myself, I don't think I would get that same joy out of it. But if it was him and I playing it, especially, then absolutely, I would do it 100 times more. And then the final one, which again, depressing, I apologise, is Spec Ops The Line, which
Okay. Yeah.
the thing I'm annoyed at myself at is when I was in university, I watched a playthrough of it. I don't know why I did this in uni. I was stupid. I was a student, but I watched it thinking I would never play it. And it wasn't until I think last year, maybe, or the year before that I played it and fell in love with it. Like, not in a weird way because it's very brutal, but
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
again, the gameplay's not that great. It's very basic, but the story and the way that they just basically portray these games. Granted, there's maybe a bit of "oh, you're a bad person because you're playing this game," kind of thing. But I think what they did with the game was so different and so fascinating.
Yeah.
It is honestly such a fantastic experience. And again, there are thousands of games that I could have put in this list. There
Yeah.
are hundreds. There's like the Gears of War series, Alice Madness Returns. There's the Pokemon games. Honestly, I could list it on and on and on. But those particular games are ones that kind of struck a note for me personally. And of course with Mass Effect, but
The Mass Effect. Yeah. I'm very pleased that you did like that.
again, you didn't really bully me. Like I always joke, oh, you peer pressured me with Luke and Marie, but no, honestly, I'm glad you gave me that extra push to play those games because otherwise, I mean, I would have played them eventually, no doubt, but I probably would have dragged my heels on them, and without your encouragement and everything, and oh, what bit are you at? No, do this, do that, then maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it, and maybe that is other than To the Moon and maybe Spec Ops. Maybe that is the thing I love about these games that because I found the community and these fans
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yeah, it makes it all the more
Absolutely.
yeah, better, yeah.
It's that shared experience. That shared experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next week's episode, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Satsu. Well, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's been interesting to see you kind of open up a little bit about some of your favourite things.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you for letting me talk your ear off. Apologies I went on a bit of a rant, but yeah, thank you.
No, always welcome, always welcome. And I know we've definitely got a lot more collaborations in us, so I look forward to that. Before we wrap up, do you just want to again just shout out your pod and where the lovely people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, yeah, you can check out Chatsunami at our website, chatsunami.com, as well as all good podcast apps. We are also on a whole load of social media, such as Twitter at ChatsunamiPod and everywhere else like Threads, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky as well. Honestly, so many to keep
Yeah,
account of.
yeah,
Instagram as well. Yeah, you can check us out at Chatsunami. The reason I couldn't have at Chatsunami for Twitter was because someone had already taken it. That's why we're Chatsunami Pod. And of course, I have a bunch of amazing collaborations, especially with yourself, Dan. So yeah, please, after this episode, of course, and after you have
we're almost
listened,
there.
yeah, after you've listened to the wealth of cast and views content, yeah, go check out our collaborations together for sure. But thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a blast every time.
Thank you for coming on, and again, thank you for kind of being there for pretty much the last 3 years. So yeah, go check out Satsu and the Chatsunami pod. For me, you're listening to me, so you know where to find the pod. But if you want to get in touch, if you want to be on one of these episodes or the dinner party episodes, or you want to collab generally, or you want to suggest a theme, or you just want to say hello, just search for Casting Views across all social media platforms. All that's left to say is I'll see you next week for another episode of Casting Views.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, take what we've got, 'cause you